A woman inherits an old doll, but it slowly begins to take control of her mind and body. A woman named Emma receives an antique doll from her late grandmother's estate. The doll, old and delicate, has a porcelain face with cracked features, a vintage dress with lace details, and curly hair that feels surprisingly lifelike. Emma had always been fond of her grandmother, and the doll, with its mysterious aura, seemed like a treasure to keep. As she unwrapped it, a shiver ran down her spine, but she dismissed it, telling herself it was just the cold breeze from the open window. She placed the doll on a shelf in her living room and tried to focus on other matters. The first night after receiving the doll, Emma felt an odd, inexplicable presence in the room. It was as if the doll was watching her, its glassy eyes unblinking, staring in her direction. No matter how she rearranged the furniture, the doll seemed to face her, and it felt as though it was waiting for something. The unsettling feeling lingered, but Emma, ever the skeptic, shrugged it off as just a trick of the mind. After all, it was just a doll, wasn't it? Days passed, and the sensation grew. Emma began to notice that the doll's eyes followed her wherever she went in the room. At first, she thought she was imagining it, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The doll's eyes were positioned in such a way that they always seemed to be locked onto her. It was as though the porcelain figure had become aware of her every movement, every breath. Emma tried to tell herself it was nothing more than an optical illusion, but deep down, she couldn't shake the growing unease. It wasn't just the eyes, it was the way the room felt, heavy, cold, and distant. Something was wrong. One night, Emma woke up with a start. Her heart was racing, and she was drenched in sweat. The dream had been vivid, terrifying. In it, the doll had moved on its own, its tiny feet creaking as it shuffled across the room. Emma could hear whispers in the dream, soft at first, but then louder. "Emma, Emma." It was the doll's voice, but it didn't sound like the innocent tone of a child. There was malice behind it, a sense of urgency and hunger. She tried to shake off the nightmare, but as she lay in bed, the whispers lingered in her ear, growing more persistent. She had to get up, to move, to escape the overwhelming sensation that something was wrong. The nightmares continued. Each night, they became more vivid, more terrifying. The doll's movements became more pronounced in the dreams. It would move around the room, inch by inch, creeping closer to her bed. Emma would wake up just as its cold porcelain fingers were about to touch her. With every nightmare, she felt more exhausted, as though the doll was draining her energy, her very will to fight. It was as though the doll had power over her, even in her sleep. Emma began to do some research, hoping to find some explanation for the eerie events surrounding the doll. What she uncovered shocked her to the core. The doll once belonged to a young girl named Lily, who had tragically died under mysterious circumstances many years ago. The local legend told of a child who had been cursed, her life taken before she could fulfill her destiny. Her parents, heartbroken and desperate, had taken extreme measures to keep her spirit alive. They created the doll as a vessel for her soul, hoping it would preserve her essence. However, the spirit trapped inside the doll was not the innocent child they had hoped for. It had turned vengeful, angry at being trapped in a lifeless form. As Emma pieced together the grim story, she began to fear the worst. The doll had been bound by dark magic, cursed with a spirit that was now looking for a new body to inhabit. Emma tried to rid herself of the doll, thinking that by destroying it, she could end the curse. She placed it in the attic, hoping to never see it again. But when she returned the next morning, the doll was back on the shelf in her living room, as though it had never been moved. No matter where she hid it, no matter how far she took it from her home, it always returned, its presence unrelenting. It wasn't just the doll's constant return that terrified her. It was the way her own body seemed to betray her. One evening, Emma sat on the couch, unable to take her eyes off the doll. She wanted to leave, to flee, but her limbs refused to obey. Slowly, she stood up, though her mind screamed for her to stop. The doll's voice echoed in her mind, whispering commands, compelling her to move closer to it. It wasn't just her body being controlled, her mind was being invaded too. She would do things she couldn't explain, taking a knife from the kitchen, walking to the attic in a daze, and then returning to the living room as if nothing had happened. happened. She felt like a puppet, and the doll was the puppet master. Days turned into weeks, and Emma's obsession with the doll grew. She could no longer tell where her thoughts ended and the doll's influence began. It spoke to her constantly, its voice soft and coaxing, promising her freedom if she just listened. "Emma, you're mine now. Let go." It was as though the doll had become a part of her, its will blending with her own. She could no longer think for herself, her thoughts clouded by the whispers of the vengeful spirit trapped inside. It soon became clear. The doll wasn't just haunting her, it was taking over her. Emma's mind, once sharp and clear, was now clouded with its dark influence. It wanted her body, her soul, to live again. The spirit of Lily had found a new vessel, a new home, and Emma could feel her body slipping away, replaced by the twisted desires of the child who would never grow up. Desperation filled Emma's heart as she realized the truth. The doll was possessed by the spirit of Lily, a vengeful child who had been trapped in this form for too long, and now it wanted her. The spirit wanted her body, her life. Emma knew that if she didn't destroy the doll soon, she would lose herself forever. She would be consumed, just as the spirit had consumed the body of the child. In a final act of defiance, Emma took the doll, trembling with fear, but determined. She made her way to the backyard where a small fire pit awaited. Holding the doll over the flames, she could hear its whispers, louder than ever, begging her not to burn it. But Emma knew what she had to do. She tossed the doll into the fire, watching as the flames consumed it. As the doll burned, Emma screamed in agony, feeling the spirit's fury rip through her body. Then there was silence. The doll was gone, and with it, the spirit of Lily. Emma collapsed to the ground, exhausted but free. If you enjoyed this spine-chilling tale of terror, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more horror stories. Share your thoughts on the possessed doll in the comments below. Do you think Emma was truly free, or is something still out there? Stay tuned for more eerie adventures.